Please excuse the interruption. It's time for your wake-up call. This thing that you call living is nothing like life at all.
What brought you to Scientology?
Well, I just moved out of my parents' place for the first time, and I was living on my own for the first time, and I really wasn't coping. I didn't cope with it very well at all, and, basically I was at a real low point, and they were doing the stress test, and they were offering a way out claiming they could improve how you were feeling, so I thought, there's no harm in trying something new, so I did a couple of basic courses, and the early stuff, it seemed rational, seemed logical, so I just went with it.
When you joined the Sea Org, did things change?
I went actually straight from public to Sea Org, which I understand is probably less common than becoming a staff member and then going into the Sea Org. I got the impression that they were quite keen to recruit people heavily at that time.
So in the Sea Org, what is life actually like?
Well, when you first go down there to be recruited and whatever, it's all smiles, happy faces. They make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. But once you've signed that contract and you've agreed what time you're going to start, when you actually go down there it's completely different. Once they've got your stuff in storage and you're on the bus, that's it, it's a completely different atmosphere. It's almost like going to a boot camp.
So how long were you in the Sea Org?
I was only in for a couple of months. I was fortunate I realized what I'd got into. I got myself out of it.
How did you actually leave?
Well, it's difficult because if you say you want to leave, they will do everything in their power to make it difficult for you. They'll try and make it so that it's easier for you to just stay than to leave. What I actually did was, out of desperation, during the physical labor that they were making us do, I actually deliberately injured myself so that I was unfit and they had to offload me.
Is that kind of thing common? Do people do that a lot?
Not that I'm aware of. To be honest, I'm amazed I actually went through with it because it hurt like hell.
On the outside, in Anonymous, we hear a lot about the RPF and forced abortions in the Sea Org. Are these things widespread? Did you see any of that when you were in?
I didn't come into contact with anything to do with the abortions, but I did see the RPF on a number of occasions, and that was one of the things that made me decide, I don't want to be here. I mean, you pass these people in corridors, you pass them in a room, and they are, afraid to even look at you. I mean, they had never met me before, but they were scared to look at me. They were scared to be in my way. If they were within a meter of me, they were, desperately shuffling out the way. I couldn't understand why these people were petrified of me.
Why do people get sent to the RPF? Is it common?
I was only aware of one person who I knew who got put on there. I don't know what they were put on there for because nobody would tell us, but I got the impression that they put people on there and they did not get off for a long, long time.
That must have been very frightening.
It was. I was petrified that I'd say the wrong thing to the wrong person and someone would find out what I was going to do and I'd end up in there and I'd never get out. I mean that completely. I couldn't trust anyone. I was scared to say anything to anyone.
What made you leave Scientology?
I first started thinking about getting out when I started seeing more of the RPF around, and started asking questions about their living conditions, and why they seemed so scared of me for apparently no reason. After that I started thinking about other things, like the way people who seemed like friends would so readily write up knowledge reports on each other for the slightest transgression. There's a kind of subtle atmosphere of oppression. I was scared of saying anything for fear of being reported on. Nobody would admit it, but everybody was scared to some degree of what people were writing them up for.
What have your experiences been reintegrating into the world outside?
Well, within a month and a half of leaving I went into pretty much a full mental breakdown. In the 6 months after I left there were 5 suicide attempts. I have blackouts of memory at random times. I am prone to frequent panic attacks. I mean, to be honest, it's hard for me actually to be here in such a big group so close to them, but it's something that I feel I have to do for myself.
So what is your decision? Which is it gonna be? Safety in your delusion, or the danger of being free?